It's YNK, so since I stole all of Thorin's gigs, at the very least, what you guys can do is subscribe to his YouTube channel, so go on and do it right now.
Dreamhack Masters Stockholm is upon us, a new stop on the Dreamhack Masters circuit. This is the 5th Masters tournament. They had Malmo in 2016, Vegas in 2017, another Malmo in 2017, and this year they had Dreamhack Masters Marseille earlier in the year, which was the first big event won by Astralis, starting up their insane streak. So when I talk about this tournament, it is a tournament with a $250,000 prize pool. Not actually that big in the modern day. I know that used to be the standard, like the benchmark of a really big event back in 2015, 2016. Nowadays, you have tournaments like Starladder with 300,000. You have tournaments like even Zortak Cup that had massive prize purse. The actual first prize of this tournament, not that crazy, $100,000. There's been many tournaments this year, maybe 10 or more that have had more than $100,000 first place. That Zortak Cup had $200,000. But as you've seen, teams no longer pick the tournaments just based on raw prize money. This is a tournament with prestige. This is the Masters. This is one of the big events you want to be at, you want to get exposure from, and you want to win if you can. And so teams that are skipping the next Star Series event are at this tournament. Now, one of the things I like about the format of this tournament is that they've tweaked it a little bit. So if you remember, in the original format, they had best of ones in the first match and the winners match, and then the best of threes in the losers match and the decider for the group. I actually made a recommendation on Twitter, which Dreamhack took in mind for, I think it was Malmo last year, where I said, I want it to be where you have to win a best of 3 to get out of a group. I don't want people to win 2 best of 1s and go to the playoffs, as, by the way, for example, at the last ECS, the NRG team did. From memory, did they? I think they did, yes, because I think they beat FaZe. So I don't want that scenario to happen, or at least Cloud9 did at ECS Season 3, for example. So they did change that, and instead they took away the best of 3 being the losers match, and they made it the decider and the winners match, which is exactly what I want. You can only get out of the group by winning a best of 3. Now, people complained about that because it means that someone goes out of the group after losing 2 best of 1s, so no one feels happy when that happens. So Dreamhack listened, and they added a best of 3 as the losers match and the winners match and the decider. It's only the first game is a best of 1, which I think's fine. Sure, I'd like the first game to be a best of 3 as well, but this is a pretty decent compromise. You still have to win at least 1 best of 3 to get out of the group, possibly 2. It means we'll have a lot of great games, and if you have to cut time, yeah, make the first game the one that you cut time on. Obviously, ESL does something similar with their format, where the first game's a best of 1s. So, okay, one of the big tournaments of the year, one of the most prestigious tournaments of the year, one of the most stacked tournaments of the year, good format. So let's talk about the tournament. Now, as you may know from past previews, I don't like to do previews that just preview the groups and don't look forward in the tournament. What I want to do is give an overview of the tournament in terms of the teams and their overall chances. Then we'll talk very briefly about the groups and who's going to make it out. So I've divided up these teams into the different categories I think they fit in, so you can mentally frame them. Even within the categories, you can sort of look at who's high at the top of the category, low at the bottom of the category, as if it was a tier system and one was going to be promoted, one might be relegated. So I'm also going to tie this into my class system. So in the favourites, these are the teams where, as you might suggest, these are the teams you expect to win the tournament. These are the ones with the, if their name's on the trophy at the end, it makes sense. Now, in theory, in Counter-Strike right now, the only team you should actually say are the clear-cut favourite are Astralis, because their worst ever result with this lineup, technically actually is 5th to 8th, but is typically making semis, usually. Typically, the team that beats them wins the tournament. And all the other tournaments they've attended, they've won. And even when they've lost very narrowly, 16-13, 16-14. And when they win, they tend to blow teams out, not even give them double digits. And they just completely wreck you and they lose 1 map a tournament. They have stuff like that going on, or sometimes no maps. So at the moment, they are not only S-class, the top tier, but they are so far above everyone else. It's quite ridiculous. So Astralis are the clear favourites, but there are going to be 2 other teams in this group. Now, Astralis are near unbeatable, as I say. With that said, the 2 teams that have beaten them are my other 2 favourites of the tournament, Na'Vi and FaZe. Na'Vi beat them twice. They beat them right at the beginning, where they eliminated them in the 5th to 8th at Star Series Season 4, the one that Na'Vi lost to Mouse. Then Obviously, they beat them more recently at ESL 1 Cologne in the semi-finals there. Both times, close games. Both times, debatable that Astralis even could have won the series. Both times took a lot from the Na'Vi guys. But interestingly, both times, Simple didn't go off in the series like he does against everyone else, which is interesting because obviously Simple is the main win condition for Na'Vi because he's by far the best player in all of Counter-Strike, maybe to ever play Counter-Strike. And he is a hard carry in every aspect of the game and with every gun. So normally, him going off is not only expected, but it's a demanded win condition. Against Astralis, that is not the case. First of all, because Astralis are famously good at shutting down, at limiting, at neutralizing superstars. That's why, for example, coldzera hasn't had as good games against Astralis in the past. He's had a lot of muted games that they then went on to win or lose in close fashion. So it hasn't been about Simple for Na'Vi. The man it has been about in both of the series where Na'Vi beat them was Electronic. This is the guy that has the big performances. It makes sense. Electronic's game is based more about consistency, very methodical style of play, winning clutches one by one, like nice technique when he's firing, good aim all the same, but more of a consistent style of play. That is in fitting with the Astralis style of play. So when he goes head to head with Astralis, perhaps they don't shut him down. I don't mean they're literally trying to shut down Simple, by the way, but I think their style of play and stylistic advantage over Na'Vi naturally does that. Now, with that said, Na'Vi can force spy like motherfuckers and they can make it work. And that is going to be effective against Astralis because so few other teams can do that. FaZe can't do that, even though FaZe is a very good force spy team. Mouse Sports can't do that. Just plays into the hands of the guys from Astralis. So I think Na'Vi is a team that has the chance to beat them, but you still overall favour Astralis and against everyone else in the field, heavily favour them. One of the other aspects, yes, they did lose to FaZe with Exist in the final of IEM Sydney. Obviously now they have Olofmeister. They technically did win with Olofmeister over Astralis back at IEM Katowice, but that was just before Astralis came fully online as the best team in the world and became so unbeatable. Now, what you've got to look at is Astralis has not only amazing players, Device, one of the most consistent best players, probably the best in-game leader in Glaive and the best fragging in-game leader, amazing role player in someone like Zipnix, Magus just pretty consistent, Dupree, one of the top entries we have. The whole team's ridiculous right now, but crucially are looking like that because of how well the team plays, how great the CT sides are, how strong the T sides are, but especially the map pool. The map pool is godlike. They can play every single map, a solid 4 to 5. They're among the very best in the world on, and the others they can at least play every team on. The key for this team is I want to see teams start playing Train against this squad. Sure, you play Cash if you can. It's one of the ones they don't play as much. I want to see teams playing Train though, because that's a map we don't see Astralis on very often. In theory, they should be good on it. It's a map Device likes, it's a map that Astralis has historically liked, but they haven't played it very much with this lineup. They haven't been forced to play it often, and they have lost it once. So I want to see the Na'Vis, the FaZes of the world, at least going for that map against them and seeing what you can do, especially, by the way, teams like Mouse Spots. That's the kind I really want to heavily go into it. Mouse Spots and Na'Vi, I feel like could really do damage if they take a map like Train against Astralis, or at least we'll find out there's another godlike map pool, in which case, okay, fair enough, there's no options unless you can play Cash. Now, Na'Vi, absolutely an S-class team. Now, there is an interesting detail where they had this recent furore, I don't know why I'm pointing up there, I'm not pointing or anything, I'm just giving you a point, with Flamey, that apparently he has some issues going on with him. That's a little bit worrying. They still have Simple. Sure, Simple's looked a little bit off at these last few tournaments, but he still had numbers that were as good as like the MVPs of those tournaments often, so I'm not worried. I think overall in this tournament, they have a shot against Astralis. I think against everyone else, they're very, very good. I think Na'Vi's going to go deep in this tournament. I think they could win this tournament, and I want to see them play Astralis, hopefully in the final. They have amazing players in Electronic and Simple, probably the best duo in Counter-Strike right now. They've got a pretty solid map pool. It's getting better and better. Watch out if people pick Dust 2 against them. That's a map that they have not been able to get wins on, and Simple hasn't looked that good on. So I want to see teams that play or can play Dust 2 pick that as a joker against Na'Vi, and there's the chances for an upset overall. Interestingly enough, Train has really gotten stronger and stronger for Na'Vi, and now they've got this really solid map pool to play with. They don't even have to play with Inferno, which actually has dropped off somewhat for them. FaZe Clan's the last team that I'm putting as my favourites, putting as S-Class. Sure, they're only temporarily S-Class because they have just brought Olofmeister back. That means we don't know where they're going to be at, but I know how good Carrigan is working with a short period of time. I think one of his mistakes at E-League was thinking he could go back to the old map pool with Olof. Didn't work out. They lost that bizarre Cash game to Mouse Sports. They lost to Fnatic despite Nico going completely ham. Overall, it was a little bit underwhelming. Where was Cash? Where were Mirage? These are supposed to be two of the absolute best maps for FaZe Clan. But you know what? I think they'll come in this tournament. They'll have the overpass that we know they normally have. I think Cash will be tuned up. I think they'll be able to play Mirage at a world-class level again. I think they'll do damage. I think they'll be a very strong team. Nico, arguably the second best player in the world, still contending for number 1 in the world. They're still such a strong team. They've got to do damage here. You're looking at minimum top 4 with a shot to win the event as well. I also, by the way, really want to see Na'Vi versus FaZe. I would really love to see that matchup and see what happens now at this point in 2018 before the major. Now, my next category are going to be the contenders. These are the good teams, even top teams, but they're teams that you don't expect them to win the tournament, but they're right below the teams that will, and they've got a chance to go compete and match up with them. 2 teams in this group, and I'm actually going to put them in different classes. I'm only going to give 1 A-class team, and that's going to be Mouse Sports. Now, there were rumors that there's some certain players in this team, don't know if they'll be in this team in a few months, perhaps some of them are going to leave. Maybe this is the final sort of stretch of really testing this lineup before people go elsewhere for bigger salaries and perhaps join the FaZe clans of the world after the major. I'm not worried about that, though, because they're a fairly individualistic team, and I think they can play off that individualistic skill. The problem is, I don't buy the E-League performance. Beating out FaZe, they still didn't make a really, really strong performance there. I didn't think they looked that convincing against Astralis. They had some decent maps, but I thought if they really came in with the firepower they looked like they had against FaZe, they should have been able to win a map. They should have been able to really push Astralis, and they didn't ultimately look like they could. I feel like Snacks, not Snacks personally, but his addition to the team and the removal of Stickor has messed up a bit of the chemistry. I've noticed Rops has played a lot worse recently. Oscar already was a bit fragile as a superstar, even though he had the superstar performances. I'm not buying that they're going to go that deep here. I think they're like a playoff team, but I don't see much beyond that. I don't think they can beat Na'Vi, FaZe, or Astralis. They've probably got a shot against FaZe again, but this FaZe is going to be in better form. I don't think they can beat Na'Vi. I think the maps aren't there for them right now, and I think they have no chance against Astralis. Now, the other team I'm putting in this group, I'm going to actually say is B-class, but they're on the border of coming to A-class based on E-League, which is Fnatic, the team with Exist and Draken now. Now, all the rumors behind the scenes say this is a good team. All the rumors behind the scenes say the coaching's working out well. They're gradually integrating Draken. People are saying this is going to be a strong, decent team. My problem is I think they're a decent team. I think they're a team that can be a playoff team and a consistent playoff team, but I don't think they can win. I don't think they can really upset a lot of those teams we talked about above us. I think they could beat a Mouse Sports. They maybe have a shot against a FaZe. I don't think they really can beat those favourites, quite frankly, though. And I think part of it is they lack firepower. They have Draken, and I know Nippy had some big firepower performances, but I haven't seen a team yet since Epsilon that actually integrated him into their lineup, and that was a much lower level team. And the big concern for me in this team is Flusher. Flusher hasn't played like himself for like a solid 6 months or something now, maybe more, except for Katowice. And he has been really lacking because he brought so much danger and threat to that team and applied a certain type of defensive map pressure that they haven't seen yet. So even though JW is going ham and applying aggressive map pressure, if you had Flusher as well tuned on the other side of the equation, that's when this team, even without too much more firepower, would already be very dangerous and have a style that can match up. For now, I don't see it personally. I think the map pool's a little bit wonky. Third class of team, or category, probably shouldn't use class when I have my own system there, are the dark horses. These are the teams that have got an outside shot to go deep and do something big and upset, but they're probably not going to, and probably just making playoffs is a good performance for these guys. 3 teams in here, all 3 in the B class, so technically in the same class as Fnatic, but I think Fnatic for now I edge a little bit above, especially in terms of my expectations. MIBR, NIG, and North. So MIBR, okay, yes, Zotac looked good, but they didn't play anyone good. With that said, they've had some performances against teams that weren't good in the past at Star Series and other tournaments, WESG, back when they started TACO, where they still looked ropey even against lesser teams. So with that said, they looked good against the bad teams. Fallen was back online, which is a big deal. I feel like if he can have good performances and frag well, now you're looking at a team that will be dangerous because he had such a great dynamic. AWPer, aggressive AWPer, a guy who could win clutches, someone who can call, who can take info from his aggressive peaks that he either uses directly or passes on to other people. Also, he's the in-game leader, obviously, but now he has a coach with Yanko behind him, taking some of the load off his shoulders. He just has to win the in-game lead and frag. If they can get any of that, then yes, I think they can be a playoff team and they can be a dark horse to upset definitely the teams that I put as my contenders, the teams above, and maybe a FaZe clan, maybe a Na'Vi if they got everything out of the firepower. Because obviously the firepower of MIBR is in theory insane on paper, it just hasn't been in-game. So we know Cold Zero is insane, but the rest have all been a mixed bag and oftentimes had kind of false starts and never fully arrived at tournaments. Map pool considerations have to be there for this team, though. They had Inferno and Cash previously. They could play a bit of Mirage. Overpass deserted them. Train was non-existent. Nuke can't play. Dust 2 hasn't really worked out. They've still been trying that, I notice. If they can get, I think it's 1 or 2 more maps. So I'm thinking personally, Dust 2 would be a nice one to have. I think elsewhere, I'd probably say Overpass coming back online, if Fallen can op again, would be nice. That's the conditions where they're both a playoff team and a team that can go deep. Top 4, maybe. I personally think just playoffs is what you can expect at this tournament. And there's an outside shot, they might not do that. But I think with their group, they probably do. NRG, I know they bombed the minor. I know that the winning IEM Shanghai was no big deal. I know they've had some very good performances, and they've also had some lackluster performances. Part of the problem is the 3 stars of the team, Cirque, Breezy and Ethan, are so young, and so as a result you don't get 2 out of the 3 online most of the time. With that said, Cirque, when he has been on, has looked like the real future star. I don't really buy that Breezy's going to do a lot more. Ethan, he's hit and miss, but when he's on, he's certainly very strong. So as a result, I think that they've got the firepower to get to a playoff performance. I think they've got a chance in terms of map pool, which is actually surprisingly decent, to go against the bigger teams. But when they're in the playoffs, when they're on the big stage, when they're against bigger names, I do think they'll crumble for now. And actually, I don't think it's even guaranteed that Cirque will turn up and be one of the sort of like MVP level players, which I think they need because they've based so much of the system around him on the CT side with his AWP. Finally, I'm listing North. Now, everyone loves to laugh at North and say, haha, they're crap, they're never going to do anything, but they grind results out. And now, not only do they grind, but they've got Nico instead of Mertz. And I did think Mertz was a liability in this team. I think Nico's got some solid firepower, even though he can be very up and down. I want to see what MSL does with 5 rifle squads, because I assume he's occasionally going to open, otherwise 5 rifle. I think the map pool's pretty solid. I think they can grind. And now that they've got a CT side where you've got another player you can play there, and I know I did an interview with Hunter recently, he told me this Nico guy is very smart about the game. So that sounds like a perfect fit with the already core of Valde, MSL, and AZ guys who are already on the same page and know what they want to do. That's why this team can grind on T-side. I think it's an improvement. I think it bumps them up a little bit. I think they're now getting... So they're going to look at A-class. So I think playoff performance. I think make the top 8. I think that's reasonable. I think it can happen. Then they can match up map pool-wise with a lot of top teams, but I don't think they'll beat them at this point unless someone like Kirby has a better performance, Nico comes in with a honeymoon factor. Otherwise, probably just top 8. Now, 2 categories left are going to be the also-rans and the no chances. So in the also-rans, I'm picking 5 teams. I've got Tyloo, Optic, Nip, Gambit and Ghost. So Tyloo, C-class team. Disappointing recent form. I know they can be very exciting. Bentek can be a big fragger. Excurate is pretty clutch. Somebody has nutty entry frag aim. But first of all, Captain Moore was shit at Zotac, even though he wasn't at Shanghai. The recent form just hasn't been good enough. Like, you expect this team to get big upsets over the teams that in theory are their peers, and they're losing to some of them or playing them close. So I still think they can be an upset team. I still think if they get the right opponent that they can do damage on a map, maybe 2, and they are a very exciting team to watch, but I've been underwhelmed by the recent form where I thought they should have lived up to their potential upset form of when they were playing the Virtus Pros, the Navis of the world, and looking pretty nice. Still some solid firepower, still a nice playing style that the wrong team could run into and get fucked up by, but I just haven't seen enough recently, and so they're stuck in my C-class. Elsewhere, we've got Optic. I don't even know if Optic deserve to be C-class at the moment. They might be D-class. Like, this team has been appalling in context of who their players are and the setup of, like, give Snappy some good players, see what he can do overall, and also who the org is and the money they've got in the investment. First of all, where's Config? Even at tier 2 lands, even at lesser lands, against C and D class teams, he's not playing that sick. He's sometimes having lands with big numbers, and even then not taking over entirely in the big matches. And then he's had some ways gone missing. Part of why they got beaten by Ghost Gaming is he had 5 kills on Inferno. Where is Config? I'm starting to wonder how much of Config was tied to MSL and MSL's system that put him in position to frag. Something I have to start asking myself. Also, Neil M has made this point on my counterpoints with him. This is a team apparently wasn't putting in many hours. Sounds as though it's a bust already and they're waiting for roster moves or some sort of a breakup after the major perhaps, and they're just playing like pros. So that's a worrying sign for me. I don't see them doing anything here. I thought they were appalling at times, even in the minor, even at some of the recent tournaments, and obviously at Zotac. Then you've got NIP. Now, this team has firepower on paper. Optic has firepower on paper. These teams have firepower. Why aren't they better than a team like Fnatic that in theory has worse firepower? Well, NIP doesn't have a good structure. They're making Lekro the in-game leader. I know it worked at the minor, but that was the minor. Where are the good teams there? I'm not really buying it that he's going to be a good in-game leader. I think they have still got good players. I think someone like Dennis could still frag out. So I think they've got a chance at an upset in the groups, but I don't think they're even going to make the playoffs, quite frankly. I'd love it to be proven wrong, but for right now, I think this team isn't right, but I think they're a roster move away from getting a good in-game leader or another good supportive player, and then we can start to see them go to work. So Gambit, I'm putting them in my C class. They've got some good players. Not good at the moment, but good historical players, even as far back as a year ago. Now, the addition of Blade as a coach is something I'm very interested to see what it'll do. I do think he can help them in terms of their map pool, in terms of being better on T-sides, which they were appalling on. And as a result, this is a team that I can actually get out of this category and move into the one above. They just haven't shown me anything yet, and therefore I've got to see it. And they're C-class at best. The last team, Ghost, I'm not even going to put in C-class. They're probably D or below. I don't really know. They've shown some alright performances. I think Steele's doing a very good job with what he's got. He hasn't got that much talent to work with. First of all, they've added Crystal as a stand-in. I don't actually think Crystal's any good at all, and he was supposed to be an in-game leader. So if he's not an in-game leader, I see even less value in him. Secondary caller, okay. Is that going to add that much? I don't think so. He looked shit at Zotac. He's not a very good individual player. So I think they really lack firepower, especially because even though he did well at Zotac, it is no guarantee that Wardell turns up and does well online. He's a pretty online player, hasn't fully proven himself offline yet. So I just don't see the firepower there. And there's a lot of inexperience on the squad, even though you have someone like, obviously, my boy Steele, who I do think is a pretty good in-game leader. So hard to see them doing better than this. Maybe they can scrape their way up to battle with the Norths, etc. for a playoff spot. I wouldn't bank on it until it's proven, though. The last three teams who are in the no chance category, not going to do anything. And by the way, infamously at ESL 1 Cologne, two of the teams I picked for that actually ended up going pretty far, which was obviously Ents and who were the other one? Who was the other one I thought would have no chance? Big, obviously, yes. Those are the two that I put. So let's see how it works out this time. I've got Hellraisers, Heroic, and Greyhound. So Hellraisers, I would have actually put them maybe one category above, maybe bordering on the category above that. Because obviously they're an upset team. They don't do it that often. They're a bit underwhelming in that sense. But they're so dangerous because they have Woxic. And Woxic is way better than he should be for this team. But he has visa problems. And visa problems are why he's in this team and not in a better team. And that's also why he's not at the ES event because he couldn't get his visa. And so Nukia is playing instead. And quite frankly, I don't think that's going to work out for them. I think they needed Woxic. I think he's a hard carry of them. So they're an okay team still. They could definitely compete with the teams in the category above, but I wouldn't bet on it. And without their star player, I don't think they're going to make any impact on this tournament. I don't think you're going to see them in the playoffs. Then you got to look at Heroic. I think it's just a bad team, quite frankly. Some of the players are all right, but they lack star players. They've got a lot of pieces that don't make a lot of sense. I think they've just stacked name value, and they're going to be sold off by Refresh at some point soon to avoid the multiple ownership conflict. So I don't expect anything. I will say, now that Mertz is on this squad and will probably have a lot of leeway in how he plays, I want to see how his skills are. I want to see if he can pop off, if he can show you he's a better player than he was in North, in which case we know there might be a future for him as the scene progresses, as the years go by in this very deep Danish scene. So I want to see what he can do personally. The last team's Greyhound. I know they've had some nice upsets, some nice close games against people. They seem like cool guys. I just don't see it in terms of them performing here. I think all these names are too good. Sure, if they went against a Ghost or something like that, they could have a chance. But in the group that they're in, I don't think they're going to be doing anything. So let's look at the four groups. Group A is Astralis, North, Tyloo, and Greyhound. That's why Greyhound's not going to do anything, because I don't think they're going to beat North in a best of three. I don't even think they'll beat Tyloo in a best of three, quite frankly. In this group, clearly Astralis is going to get out. It's almost certain, bearing in mind all the best of threes. I think actually I'm going to pick North. Tyloo I like as an upset team, but I think North will grind against them and use their own experience against them. Greyhound, I don't think is going to be able to overcome North, who has a better fundamental team and now has a better player. And I think even Tyloo could cause a little bit of problems for North, but I think we'll end up coming third overall, even though I'd love to see them in the playoffs. Group B is Na'Vi, NRG, Nip, and Ghost. So Na'Vi are clearly going to get out here. I think it's beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're the best team by far here. But after that, sure, NRG could get upset by Ghost. NIP's got the players and the experience to maybe upset NRG. But I'll say NRG still makes it up. I think fundamentally they're a better team than these other two. I think they're young players. Actually, in terms of who NIP are at the moment and who Ghost aren't yet, I think they match up pretty well. I think they've got a decent style. I think you can even scout these other teams to some degree. It's harder with Crystal and Ghost, obviously. Steel could call a great series and get a map maybe against them. NIP has the firepower to get a map against them. Maybe these are going to be 3-map series. But I don't think NRG is going to ultimately be troubled. I think they will make the playoffs. I don't think they can do much against Na'Vi, so I'm not going to say there's much going on there in that matchup. Obviously, North against Astralis could actually unexpectedly be good because of North's history with them. They will scout them, but Astralis is just conclusively better, so I don't think it matters anywhere. Group C is FaZe, Fnatic, Optic, and Heroic. I think FaZe are probably almost certainly going to get out here. I love that they can go up against teams like Optic and Heroic and just go DM style and get out. I think that's pretty clear cut. Maybe Fnatic can beat them. Maybe Fnatic can best them and have a nice matchup and have a decent style against them. Even so, I think FaZe is better. I think Fnatic's map pool's half decent, but still isn't big enough to necessarily flex against a team like FaZe. So I think FaZe gets out, and I'll say Fnatic gets out as well. I think Optic could be mad underwhelming. I don't think they can do anything here. Heroic, I just think, is just a bad team. So does Optic have a puncher's chance against Fnatic? Yeah, they have a puncher's chance, but these are probably best of 3, so I think they could win one map maybe. So I'm saying FaZe and Fnatic. Last group is Mouse Sports, MIBR, Hellraisers, and Gambit. Now, this should have been the most competitive group, the most straight fire group, but the lack of Woxic and Hellraisers takes a lot of the excitement out of it. So I think Mouse Sports will get out here. They've still got enough quality. They've still got a decent enough map pool. They've got a decent in-game leader. They've got some star players. They can outfrag all these teams. Mouse Sports should be getting out, but MIBR might be able to give them some trouble. I could see a world in which MIBR beats Mouse Sports and they both get out together. I think MIBR is the other team getting out. Sure, I still think they're underwhelming. I don't think this lineup is it. I don't think it's going to win tournaments. But you know what? Cold Zero is amazing. That's already almost enough to get you out of this group. Fallen looking half decent at Zotac. They've still got talent all throughout the roster who I don't think will be scared of most of these teams. MIBR should get out. Hellraisers, I would have given a solid upset chance if they'd have had Woxic. They don't, sadly, especially against MIBR. Gambit, I think, has the players, but hasn't shown it over the last 6 months. I want to see what Blade does, because against a team like Mouse, I think he could scout. It's going to be harder against MIBR since he's got Yanko he's working against, and he's retooling the team. I think Gambit could maybe take a map of any of these teams here. They could maybe make it close. But ultimately, I think Mouse Sports are quite favoured to get out. I think MIBR is going to be the team of the others that make it out. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Caesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.